Bienvenue au Café Trois, Principes, Expresso. Hello, I'm Donna Churchman, and I've been looking in the direction of the principles for about 18 months now. And a little bit of background about myself. I worked in the creative industry for about 20 years, and I had a very successful London-based design company doing some branding and creative projects for very big name brands and organisations, and it was very successful for 14 years, and I really enjoyed it, and I love being creative. And then I got to about 42 years old and started to have a lot of insecure thinking. So I started to have a lot of insecure thinking about me as a creative, about what I could do, what I could deliver, and this sort of thinking started to consume my everyday experience. So when I went to a production or a meeting or I started a project, I just have this stuff going on in my head all the time. And what started to happen was that I used to think a lot like, have I lost it, basically? I'm 42, there's younger designers and although I'd been really successful, it's almost like I've forgotten all that, and I've forgotten everything I'd done before. And I started to believe these thoughts to be very true about me. And what started to happen was I got less and less creative. I got quite formulaic and repetitive in my creative work, and I felt really uninspired, and I really thought, well, that's it, I haven't got it anymore. So I felt there was nothing more that I could do but to step down from my company and go and look in another direction. So I spent a few years out of the industry with my young daughter looking for a new direction. And I really buried my creative career. I wouldn't talk about I used to be a creative or I used to have a design company in London. I just completely buried it because it felt for me, it was like I had to ignore it. It was like a grief that I was experiencing by not being in an industry that I trained at art college in. So I sort of just buried it, and what was happening was, I was very unhappy through that period of time, and I really lost direction. I wasn't doing anything creative. And then I came across this book called Clarity, which has the principles, the principles behind clarity and talks about the principles. And I've done massive amount of self-development over the years and seeked everywhere, and I saw something really new in this. And I thought, this guy's onto something. So I read the book, and then I just was this impulse to go further into it and immerse myself in this understanding. And after just a few months of doing that and being on a course and understanding it more and more deeply, I had this huge surge of creativity. And it was like there was, it was uncontrollable. It went on for weeks. I couldn't sleep. The ideas were just pouring through, and it was almost like I had blocked all this creative flow. There was like a dam that had become unplugged that I didn't even know was there. And this understanding had showed me what had blocked it in the first place. And what had blocked it in the first place was all my thinking about myself, my creativity, my experience of flow state. Everything was consumed with thought. It was just filled up my mind, and I just couldn't access that creativity anymore. But what it showed me was it never, ever, ever goes away. Never. So it doesn't matter if you work in the creative industry, or you work in another industry, or you do something that is Well, you have to come up with new ideas. You've always got the capacity there. There's only one thing that gets in the way. Doesn't matter what age you are, what your experience is. And that's what this understand showed me. And so it seems so simple. It seems so simple. But you can never, ever lose your creativity. You can only think you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Donna.
It's a pleasure.